Welcome to the interview series of Peer Review Week with ACSE. And today we have invited a very known industry expert, none other than Gareth Dyke from ReviewerCredits, and who is also a co-chair of Peer Review Week committee this year. So Gareth will be sharing his opinions on Peer Review Week, transparency, or compromise. So thank you, Gareth, for joining us today. So how about we quickly start with a little bit of professional background or how you become involved in peer review process?
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. Great to be here. I was an academic. I still do some research, but I was a researcher for 20 years, working on fossils, dinosaurs, and the early evolution of birds. So I published lots of papers and I reviewed lots of papers and I worked as an editor, still do. So that's how I got involved in peer review initially, like dealing with the process both as an author and researcher, but also performing lots of peer review. So yeah, that's where my background comes from. And since 10 years or so now, I've been working more in the kind of publishing industry side of things.
That's great and interesting. Straight from fossils and bird evolution, straight to the peer review evolution.
Oh, we still see lots of fossils, don't worry about it.
Yes. So it's always interesting to hear about expert opinions, especially when we talk about evolving landscapes. So in your opinion, how you seen the peer review process evolve over the years, especially with the growing discussion about open peer review?
Right. I mean, I would answer this question from my perspective, editing a journal, which I've been doing for almost 20 years. And from my perspective, peer review has become a lot more important in terms of research integrity in particular than it used to be. That's not to say that it wasn't always really, really important to control carefully the quality of content. It's just that these days, and in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen so much more like bad, low quality issues, problems, and such a pressure on researchers to get their work published. I think publishers have also become a lot more aware of all of the issues that maybe editors always knew about, but the publishers weren't quite so interested in or cared about so much. And now that's been one of the big drivers of changes in peer review. The other one, of course, is AI and the advancement and development of tools that can really help both editors manage the peer review process, but also importantly, help peer reviewers to perform, to efficiently evaluate papers more effectively.
So in your opinion, how do you see this, our topic of discussion today, the open peer review? It's more like transparency for you, or you are going for compromise?
No, I think this topic of open peer review, for me and for many researchers, is just a natural development of what we've been going towards for many, many years. And the idea, of course, is that I've got a paper, and I get that paper evaluated by experts, by other workers in the field, and then after that, the paper can be passed potentially to journals, or journals do it the other way around. They provide completely open and transparent access to papers. Anyone can look at them, anyone can review them. Everything that gets written and said about those papers is widely available, and that's just better. I mean, there's very few researchers that would say that that's not a good thing to have like transparency on the comments that come in about their papers. From the reviewer side, of course, there's potentially issues around protecting identity. And I might not want, let's say, to be negative. If I want to be negative about somebody's paper, I might not be so happy to have my identity revealed. But generally speaking, being open about review, about science, about everything to do with research is a better way to go. I mean, most researchers would argue.
I agree with you. So in your opinion, how do you see that? What are the potential benefits or drawbacks while adopting the open peer review model?
Well, the benefits for researchers are that their papers, their research is evaluated in an open and transparent way, and that removes lots of biases that we see as editors, as publishers in the peer review process. For reviewers too, I think it's a big plus. I mean, they are much more easily able then to get evaluated by their institutions or by research councils or governments for the work that they do. If it's widely known and widely available how many reviews I've done, which reviews I've done. I know that we're striving hard at ReviewerCredits, for example, to see changes in the way that academics are assessed for the work that they do as peer reviewers. Because at the moment, they don't really get any credit or any kudos or any kind of points, if you like, for the work that they do, often voluntarily, for peer review. So the benefits of this are widespread, both for researchers, reviewers, and for journals and publishers, I would say.
Exactly. So when it comes to confidentiality concerns, could open peer review compromise the confidentiality for some reviewers, and how this can be mitigated?
Well, it could. I mean, of course it could, but this is going to be an opt-in process. I mean, that's the way that this, I imagine, would be managed. So I wouldn't do a review for a journal that was using this process if I had concerns about confidentiality. So, I mean, reviewers will be able to say, no, I don't want to review for this journal because I don't want my name released alongside the review. I mean, it's the same really in peer review at the moment anyway. I mean, at the journal that I edit, more than 2/3 of the reviewers sign their names on their peer reviews, right? And they often happen today, actually. Somebody asked me, make sure you pass my name on to the authors for various reasons. They want to, for the authors to know that they reviewed the paper. They want to make sure that they get their name in the acknowledgements often as well. So it's people do it anyway. And I think that's missed by a lot of discussions around this kind of open peer review debate.
With your interactions and experience with editing peer review community, how do you believe that open peer review, maybe it can become a standard practice in scholarly publishing? Why not?
Well, why not? I mean, I would hope that it will become standard practice in scholarly publishing for the reasons that we've just talked about. And of course, as well, if you don't want to do it as a reviewer, then you don't have to do it. I mean, there will be some potential kind of knock-on effects in terms of finding people, finding expert reviewers, but the benefits are quite profound, both for researchers and reviewers. So I can't imagine why people would not want to do this unless they look at the paper and feel that it's just, comments they're going to make are negative and they don't want to, sign their name onto those negative comments. But I think that's also potentially an advantage. I mean, studies have shown, as you know, Mariam, that if I'm going to be having my name published around a review that I do, then often that forces me actually to be more polite and to be more positive and not to be so negative and kind of aggressive about the work of others, which is a big problem as well in peer review. If
Also,
you're anonymous,
I would say if you're doing it a real review when it's gonna be transparent and open.
yeah. I mean, people can be quite nasty when they know that they're going to be anonymous in the peer review process. And that's a huge problem, especially for young researchers just getting started in their careers. Getting a negative peer review can be quite damaging psychologically for young researchers. I mean, it happened to me and it happens to lots of people.
So, last but not the least, is there any advice that you would like to offer to early career researchers who are navigating the peer review process, especially in context of open peer review?
Yeah, we get this a lot, and we get contacted by early career researchers a lot. And my advice is write to editors, make sure you put your name out there and volunteer to get involved in the peer review process. Many journals, many publishers have training programs for young researchers, mentoring programs for young researchers. So you can potentially be paired with a more senior colleague and, you'll work together on a review. But again, like studies have shown that some of the best sets of peer review are from a younger researcher and a more experienced colleague. So young researchers tend to have more time potentially or want to do a better or more thorough job. So yeah, I mean, get in touch with editors, volunteer, because you won't get picked up perhaps by many of the search tools that editors and journals use, because if you haven't published that many papers yet, you might not appear in those algorithms. So get in touch with editors and volunteer.
That's great. So, my last question before we wrap up, are your general thoughts for this year theme of Peer Review Week, Innovation and Technology in Peer Review? And how do you see that the peer review platform itself is contributing to the field?
Okay, for the second part of that question, I mean, peer review is a process that, is still being managed by many journals and publishers in a very antiquated, very old-fashioned way. And that's partly the result of the platforms that many journals and publishers use to manage peer review. And nobody listening to this will be at all surprised to hear me say that. So we've got a huge opportunity to innovate in peer review and a huge opportunity to take advantage of many of the massive developments in AI, for example, and other automations that we've seen over the last year. But I would urge publishers to get up to speed, stop forcing editors like me to use platforms that are clunky, that are many years out of date, because we can't innovate. We can't easily help researchers to manage and be effective in peer review. So yeah, this is a very exciting time. And yeah, peer review week this year, we hope will be super exciting, and we're all going to learn a lot.
Yes, for sure. So thank you so much, Gareth, for sharing your valuable insights with me today and taking out time for this interview. It's really been a pleasure for discussing these all topics about peer review and open peer review practices. And I'm sure that our audience, especially the early career researchers, it will be greatly appreciated with this video and your perspectives on the evolving landscape of open peer review. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.